Now, this story is particularly pertinent at this time of year because it's so dark so early. Should streetlights be turned off at night to save money or kept on so that people feel safe? Well, over the last decade, many councils in England have opted to turn them off because of financial pressures.
They can save an awful lot of money by doing that. In 2016, Lincolnshire County Council turned off 2/3 of its streetlights between midnight and 6 a.m, and they have saved millions of pounds. But that policy is now under review by the new Reform-led council. Here's our reporter, Leanne Brown.
Losing the light at night was controversial when it was first introduced in 2016.
Thousands of streetlights will be turned off in parts of Lincolnshire to save almost £2 million a year.
There were claims crime increased.
There's been approximately 7 break-ins over the way.
And people felt unsafe.
It's pitch black. It just makes you feel uncomfortable.
It's a huge safety risk for having the lights off so early.
Today, those feelings remain for students at Skegness College.
I work in a bar. It is scary because I'm walking home in the dark and there's no one, can't see anybody because how dark it is.
How do you feel when you're walking down the street when it's dark?
Wary.
What do you fear might happen?
Someone might jump out or like rob you.
The street I live on, it is kind of a rough area, so like drug dealing and all the other stuff. And at night time, the street lights does go off around like 10, 11 o'clock, and it is really dark. A counter argument could be, would it be expensive? If you use a renewable energy source like solar power or the wind farms, it could preserve energy.
It's a bit eerie because you don't know who's around, especially when it's dark, so you have to wear a head torch or something like that.
I feel much safer in the dark. It gives you, it's like a cloak, if you will. It's like a cloak of protection.
But Danny Robertson, who campaigns against light pollution, claims there are limited safety benefits from having the lights on.
If anything happens to somebody out on the street where they're attacked, or God forbid something even worse happens to them, especially as women, we're told to keep to street lit roads, we're told to keep to all these very lit places. But when you look at these accounts of what's happened and where these things are taking place, the vast majority of the time they are taking place in lit environments. Light can't protect us.
The Conservative Council saved around £2 million a year turning the lights off, but Reform UK took control in May and is now reviewing the policy.
Nobody should be walking around our towns or villages and feeling unsafe, in our opinion. But there is obviously a balance with taxpayers' money. So, you know, if we pay for the lights to be on, something else possibly doesn't get paid for. That's the reality.
So after years in the dark, towns and villages in Lincolnshire could once again see the light. Leanne Brown, BBC News, Skegness.
Well, we are joined now by Amaka Lawson, who co-founded Nantwich Street Angels, and Poppy Murray, who created the Be Lads campaign in response to the murder of Sarah Everard. And she's in Guernsey. Morning to both of you. Thank you for coming and talking to us about this.
Thank you.
Really interesting issue. In the patrols that you do, what is the feeling on the streets at night? Because we're talking about Nantwich, this is where you are. There are light areas and there are darker areas.
So usually when we carry out our Street Angels patrols and we're at the city centre where it's pretty much lit, everything is easier. It's easier for us to feel, even as patrollers and volunteers, safer. It's easier for us to assess and assist vulnerable people. But the minute you start to wander down the alleyways where it's darker, poorly lit, it becomes a concern because you would always get that lone walker who would, maybe they've had too much to drink and they've wandered off by themselves, and they could be easily missed because of the darkened areas around them. So that's a bit of a struggle for us, you know. So, yeah, it's really important to us to find those areas better lit to help us help people more.
So what do you make to this move by lots of councils, because they're saving literally millions of turning off the streetlights? Not all the time, but between, say, the hours of midnight and 5 o'clock in the morning. What difference do you think that would make?
I think it's a very sensitive balancing act. in terms of savings versus security, but for myself and my group of volunteers, we would always vote for safety because you may argue that more people are back at home at that time of the night. However, that's even when the vulnerability for those who are out is heightened. So are we going to sacrifice their safety just because you think majority of the citizens or the public is safely tucked in bed? So I would think it's something they should look further into in terms of how do you give a certain type of lighting that may be cheaper to run than totally turn it off, because it's not going away. You have young persons who would go out, who would stay out all night till early hours of the morning. We conclude our patrols about 4 a.m., but even at 4, when we have to go home, you still find that loads of vulnerable persons who would need support, and we can't just see everybody. So, yeah.
Let's turn to Poppy. What is the impact on behaviour in places where the lights are not on at night?
Well, we certainly know that particularly women change their behaviour, even just when the clocks change through winter. So Sport England found that 72% of women will change their outdoor exercising habits, and that is purely because they feel unsafe in the dark. We also know that crime does increase in areas that are less well lit, and we're not just talking about women's safety there, we're also talking about vandalism, criminal damage, all those sorts of crimes have been proven to increase. And when you know that crime is increasing, you're going to change your habits on that basis, because who wants to be around areas where they know that perhaps they're more likely to become the victim of a crime?
But Poppy, as we were just discussing, the finances that local councils are facing at the moment and budgets having to be trimmed and cut, you can see maybe why this is a cut that they think doesn't affect that many people in the middle of the night, but could save millions of pounds.
Yeah, I think I completely understand that we have to cut costs where we can, but I think doing it at the expense of safety is a mistake, frankly. We also have to think about the economic cost of crimes. As I said, South Yorkshire Police found over 10 years that crimes are 1.3 times more likely to happen in areas with poor lighting. There is a knock-on effect to the cost of those crimes. If we're looking at violence against women and girls, which the National Police Chiefs Council has said is an epidemic in this country and that we need to be tackling this, if we're thinking about the impacts of sexual assaults, you're then talking about the cost of the police investigating those, the cost of all those support services, and of course the emotional and psychological cost of these things as well. And also, if people stop going out in the nighttime, they stop using the nighttime economy because they're going home before the streetlights turn off. That's also going to have an economic cost as well. So I think that really needs to be considered and balanced.
I mean, both of you seem to be very well aware that there is a balance here and aware of the cost of it. But if you had to make a choice, the streetlight should be a priority.
I would say it must be priority, because no amount of money saved would warrant losing a life or increasing crime and the effects on the citizens. So yes, I would wholeheartedly vote for more lights, or to keep the lights. And to stress this point, we don't even have enough lights, because whilst we're out, I was saying earlier, around Nantwich, there's loads of areas that are very sensitive and high-risk areas that doesn't have enough light, like specifically the Waterloo beside the River Weaver. It's not well lit, and increasingly we keep having cases of people falling into the river. And when they do fall in, there isn't even enough lighting to identify that somebody has fallen into the river. So that is grave concern to us.
Thank you both very much indeed. I know it's something that will be of concern to lots of people across the country. Lots of messages coming in. Sharon's in touch from Essex, where she says in her neighbourhood, Castle Point, residents have put money together to try and contribute towards keeping the lights on, so taking it into their own hands. But obviously not everybody can necessarily afford to do that.
Yeah, indeed. Keep your comments coming in, please.